Good morning, sports cards fans, and welcome back to Hobby Hotline. It is the final Hobby Hotline of 2025, and it's been a great year for Hobby Hotline. It's been a great year in the hobby, and today is going to be all good news, all good memories. So if you came for, you know, gossip and all that kind of stuff, you're not going to get it here today. It's going to be our end of the year wrap up. And we're going to have an opportunity to talk about all the good things we experienced. And I have a whole list of stuff from my vantage point, which is the vintage. But we are joined by two very special guests. Chris, good morning, sir. How are you?
Morning. Doing great.
And Brody, you and I have not done a hobby hotline together, but I'm happy to have you along. And how are you this morning, sir?
I'm good. It's nice to meet you, Dan. I haven't been on in a couple months, but I'm back and I'm ready to go.
Let's go.
All right. Well, we have let's say good morning to the chat. We have right now we got 24, but we're going to get up much higher. Mad City Brew was here before anybody. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a great holiday week. Mine has been great. I know Chris maybe not so great because of some stuff.
I got sick. Yeah, not fun.
Yeah, and Brody, I hope you had a great holiday week so far. That's me saying good morning. Good morning to Stuke, one of our regulars. There's Chris saying good morning. Philly Joe, how are you? Happy holiday to you. Good morning to Chris from Missouri. Chris, how are you? Foul Ball is here. Cooter Lev is here. Adam's Card Closet, how are you, Adam? Larry and Abel in Vegas. Good to see Brody, absolutely. So we're gonna swing it around the horn and try to talk about some good stuff that happened. Chris, I know you. There's a lot of news in your part of the world, which we'll leave for another day. I know some of it was talked about last week. But just from your vantage point as a collector, because I know your history is as a longtime collector, tell us about some of the good stuff from 2025, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I was just traveling to Detroit of all places last week, and you can't go through an airport now without seeing vending machines for sports cards and Pokemon cards, and just how present the hobby feels everywhere. My kids and I have been watching King of Collectibles the last couple days, and it's just gone so mainstream. The hobby reminds me very much. I used to like punk bands when I was growing up because they were, not a lot of people would listen to them. They were kind of like, your own little thing, and then sometimes they'll blow up. Like Blink 182 is a band that really, started off small and independent, and then became they're selling out coliseums, and it feels like that's what the hobby is for me. Is it used to be this my own little, cool little side, maybe not cool, my little side thing, and then it's become so big now. It's just crazy. So I think the biggest thing for me for 2025 is that the industry, when Fanatics came on the scene, they talked about 10xing it, and we were all like poo-pooing that, but it's definitely bigger, and it's definitely a lot more in our face than it's ever been before, which is pretty wild.
I just noticed I had the Thanksgiving stuff off on the back. Sorry about that.
No worries. I was like, I'm thankful for this year.
So Brody, tell us about some of your good memories from 2025 and your hobby experiences.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of fun stuff this year, but one specific thing I have started to notice, which has been a thing going back to when I first started, that we needed more of, was hobby shops. And we are starting to get a lot of more local card shops, and I see them everywhere. I used to have none that were by me. There was a couple that were, half hour, 45 minutes away. Now there's like 5 within 20 minutes. Like,
wow,
there's a lot of new shops opening. It's awesome to see. It's like you talked about. The industry is booming. It's really cool.
Well, I'm going to talk about vintage, but here, Chris C. And now that is not you, Chris. This is someone else named Chris C. Picked up the 53 Bowman Color Piri Reese, one of my favorite cars in the hobby, and finished the Colfax run, another thing that I did a few years ago. So somebody near and dear to my heart. So my thing with vintage is that the shows are thriving. Card shows, and that's not just vintage. That's actually across the board. Card shows are absolutely thriving. And I was at Strongsville, which is now 3 years in a row. It'll be in April. Has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. Philly is bigger than it's ever been. Like, it's exponentially growing. Shriners is big. Burbank is a big one. Dallas. Brody, you're a Dallas card show guy, right?
No, I've never been there. I almost.
Oh, you've never been. Okay.
Didn't work out.
And then, of course, the National, which was pretty epic this year. So card shows, to me, have become this thing where you just, like, you could show up and you can get anything. And it's not just vintage, it's not just modern, it's not just TCG, Pokemon, whatever. It's just like everything is there. And they're around so much. Like I started setting up at a Brooklyn show that didn't start in 25, but really took off in 25. And so that's like a new thing. So I think card shows are as healthy as they've ever been, really.
Yeah, it feels like the 80s, honestly, when there were every Holiday Inn and every Hilton had a card show. The Red Lion used to have card shows. It's not hard to find them anymore, and that's just a really cool thing. And I love. I guess that's one of my biggest blessings is I get to attend a lot of shows, and that is so much fun when you get to walk the floor and find things that you wouldn't find in your normal market. When you're at a show out of town, or able to find your local team at a discounted price if you're traveling. So I always think that's kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about it for any show, but I think especially with the National too, every year it just seems like they add a new huge room. It's kind of crazy, and it just feels
the whole
like
upstairs now is crazy.
Yeah, even upstairs too. It's wild.
So the National this year had that upstairs, which people were not crazy about because it was packed in and there was all this extra room.
I guess, it
was hard to navigate. But I think this year that other room is supposed to be like spread out again this year. So I think the National is even going to be bigger in 26. So any next, Chris, any more 2025 memories you want to share with us? The positive stuff.
Well, for me, one of my favorite things at the National this year is I brought my son for the first time. So he's 12 years old, and I'm been in the hobby feels like my entire adult life, and to share it with him was really cool. And I was lucky enough to have David Adams let him work their booth for a little while because I was pretty busy at the National too, and he had the best time ever, and negotiating cards, and he just thought it was the coolest thing ever. So that was a real gift when you get to enjoy the hobby with your family. And I see a lot of collectors who whose kids are not interested in their mom or dad's collection, and it just breaks their heart. And I'm lucky both my boys have a real interest in the hobby. So we had Carlin family rip night last night. Even mom opened a box of Allen and Ginter, and my son pulled this kick-ass Ewan McGregor Star Wars autograph. Well, it's not coming through, but
yeah, you can see it.
Number 5, which is pretty great. So he was doing laps around the house. It was awesome to see. So I think when you can share the hobby with family and friends, it becomes so much more special than it just being your own private thing,
Well, I'll just bring this up since we were on it. My kids brought me this book. It's about Braves Field, the original field in Boston where the Braves played, and it has a family connection since both of my kids went to Boston. 2 of my kids went to Boston University, and this field is what's now part of Boston University. But they brought me this cool book. So anyway, Brody, it brings up a point. I think Chris brings up a point is that I think younger people are getting into the hobby more. And when I go to, I go to the in particular, the White Plains show has just an enormous amount of kids coming around, and it's not just kids with with the Zion cases, but it's kids with their parents and kids with their friends. And it seems like we've always wanted to, from vantage point of an older person, always wanted to make sure the hobby was left in good hands and that the youth were coming in and that they had the same sort of enthusiasm for it as we did. So how do you feel about that and the development of that in 2025?
Yeah, I've seen so many kids at shows and at card shops this year. When I started collecting in 2017 and really got into it in 2018-ish, there were not many kids at those shows. I mean, there weren't even that many people. I mean, a lot of the diehard collectors were at stuff like the national stuff, but there were not that many kids. There weren't that many females. But now you go to a card show or a card shop and you see it all. There are so many kids making trades, selling, opening stuff. Like, it's crazy. And it's so nice to see because, like you said, we need to make sure that the kids can afford stuff. And I know we're in a crazy time now where stuff is more expensive, but they're finding ways to enjoy it.
Well, if that trend continues, that would be very welcome for, like I said, older persons like myself who want the hobby to be left in good hands. Another thing that I've noticed from the vintage standpoint in 2025 is we had a great year of finds. And what I mean by that is like the attic finds, things that came out of the woodwork. There was a great find of rose postcards, which are super rare. There were upstate New York, there was a Kester bread find that included a Babe Ruth. And then our friend Leighton Sheldon went down to Louisiana and discovered an entire collection of Red Cross back cards, which he did some content on. And we continue to see cards coming from Puerto Rico and in particular Venezuela. So like the whole concept that like all the vintage that exists is already out there is not true, because there's still attics, there's still trunks filled with amazing finds, and people keep finding them. And that's just a great development in the hobby from 2025. And I went back and I researched it and I found all these things, and I remember them, but I wanted to make sure that I pointed out like the good stuff that had come out of the woodwork. And that's another great aspect of 2025 that really affected me positively in 2025. And I tried to get one of those Red Cross cards, but Leighton was
that cheap taste.
It was tough. But what he did was everybody who contacted him privately, which included me, got a T-shirt. So he went out and he got T-shirts made with the Red Cross, the Just Collect Red Cross, and then on the back it has like the actual back, the artwork from the back. And I was at the Philly show and I was able to pick up my XX of that T-shirt, and so he gave us all prizes for participation trophies, as it were. The other thing I want to talk about is
real quick. Have you? I've noticed. We'll on occasion see people bring us cards in old books, and a lot of those vintage cards that they bring are their own finds that people used baseball cards as bookmarks. Do you find that often?
Well, what we do find often are cards that were in albums and have glue residue or maybe even paper loss in the back.
It's a mess.
And sometimes it's a big deal because the card has been in an album for decades or a century maybe. And the card ends up being, let me show you one. It's right here. Look at that. It's this Walter Johnson card, which on the front, I'll show you, just put myself on the front. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, centered, sharp, everything. But the back has some paper loss where it was in an album. So we see a lot of that. And then the cards are getting, and that's what's happening a lot with the cards from Venezuela and some of the other Central and South American countries, is that they were in albums. All of them were in albums, and they're being soaked out. Sometimes that's successful. Sometimes it's not so successful. But you can end up with a card with a beautiful high eye appeal front with little damage on the back, and it saves you tons of money because the grade ends up being a 1 or 1.5 instead of what the front looks like, which is great. So Yeah, that does happen. I should mention, yeah, this was pointed out that biggest find of the year was the T206 Wagner by Golden, which just showed up on publicly, this week. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was market health. Like the card market is booming as much as it's been since, I guess, 21 or 22, or maybe 22 was the downswing, but like 2021, when all of that extra cash was out there and people had nothing to do but go on the internet and buy baseball cards. Now people have everything to do, but they're still buying baseball cards or sports cards. Market health in 2025, strong. What do you feel about 2026 for that, Chris?
Well, there's one trend I've noticed that's been really interesting. When I worked at Upper Deck on the marketing team, we wouldn't even try to market to 14 to 20-year-old males, because generally they would enjoy the hobby for those early years in their life, and then they would find out about girls or get too busy with school, or cards weren't cool enough for them, and then they would come back and we would try to remarket to them in their 20s and 30s in order to try to bring them back to the fold, and we would often be successful, and then they would share the hobby with their kids, and the cycle goes on. But I'm not seeing, I definitely noticed it this year more than ever, is the amount of, and Brody's a fine example, the amount of teenage males that are proud and fired up about their collectibles and on Instagram and sharing everything there. And Brody, you can kind of probably talk about this too, but it 5 years ago, Brody, it was kind of just you at the National, that age group, and now it's really boomed. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
No, yeah, for sure. I know so many friends that collect now, and it's not even just like they open small stuff. They have huge cards, and they talk about it all the time, and are trying to get other people with it, especially like Chicago teams around here. Definitely a huge thing around me.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So
many of them do have these crazy cards. Like you see a 17-year-old kid walking around with a Pelican case, and you never know what's in it. Like it's wild, but it's a really good sign, I think, for the health of the hobby. If the industry doesn't lose those kids from 14 to 22, imagine how big this industry could be.
Brody, what do you think are like some of the ways that the hobby could continue to have like youth people, like 14 to 22, and even late 20s, stay in the hobby? Because I know I'm guilty of it. I left the hobby at least twice during my earlier years. Some of it had to do with just life experiences and having kids, and going to college back before I had kids, and just sort of like just it's a life cycle thing. But what do you think we can do to keep kids in the hobby?
Well, I think a lot of the companies are doing a good job of it already, because I think, we see some of these like commercials and ads that Tops and Fanatics have run that are really centered towards families and kids. And I think they're when I watched them the first time, it just was really cool. And I think, like we've mentioned, a lot of these kids have really high end cards, and it's starting to become really cool to have these high end cards.
Well, money is never going to be uncool. So if you've got
That's also true.
if you got a 4 or 5 digit card in your box, yeah, that's going to be cool.
Yeah, and it's a good thing to teach some of these kids the value of thinking you're on top of the world, and then you've got a Wander Franco type or something like that. So it's good to learn about when's the right time to sell, when's the time to invest more. I think these are all good lessons for kids to have.
Yeah, I know it's like I could say, yeah, I still have my Greg Jeffries cards that were going to make me a millionaire, but like you have to learn it yourself. I mean, you can't, listening to me talk about like the 70s and 80s and all those cards that were going to make me a millionaire and send my kids to college. Like you have to understand it yourself. And as soon as you get one of those cards that, is a 4-digit card and then the guy, breaks his ankle or gets released or has an off year or whatever, like who's the Arizona left-handed hitter rookie of the year guy who had a tremendous year and then just dropped off? What's his name? Somebody in the chat can help me. Arizona.
You're not talking about Corbin Carroll, are you?
Yeah, Corbin Carroll, who was the hottest thing in the world like 3 years ago, and then he fell off. And so his cards just tanked. So, it happens. Carroll, there you go. Corbin Carroll, right. So yeah, market health. Brody, what do you think about like the 2026 for like market health issues?
I think the market is still going to be great. I think it really helps with cards too, with some of the people that are playing right now. I mean, Shohei Ohtani might arguably be the best baseball player ever, and I think a lot of people will say he is. People like Paul Skeens are insane, and there's just a very high market value for them because people are watching them pitch. And two, on the baseball side of things, the World Baseball Classic's coming up, and we're going to see all these people from different countries that people might not see regularly, like my man Munetaka Murakami that's coming to my White Sox. I can't wait to see him. I hope.
It's amazing. Yeah,
I still can't believe that. But yeah, there's a lot of great players, and if we go back to some other years, there might not be the same level of talent in the leagues as well.
Yeah, the other thing is these are good guys too. Like Aaron Judge. I live in New York, so I see this guy all the time. He's just a good guy. He's a likable person. Same way with Shohei. Shohei, forget about the whole gambling thing and the interpreter and all that stuff, but like just a decent character, a likable guy. And a lot of these players are like that. So I think baseball has done a great job in turning these really high-end players into positive ambassadors for the game. And that's something that I think, if you buy a baseball card of a guy who's kind of an asshole, you're not in love with it. If you buy a baseball card of a guy who you really like as a person, I think that helps the value.
Yeah, and I also think that, that's one of the reasons why there's other options for people to collect now too, which has made our industry so much bigger. So someone in chat was mentioning TCG this year. It's the growth of things like Pokemon, where the quote I always like is Pikachu's never going to have a DUI, or Charizard's never going to tear his ACL. So these evergreen entertainment products, whether they be Pokemon or One Piece, a huge emerging category. Netflix is about to launch a second and third season of the live action show for that. And I expect that's going to just keep that property going crazy. But the other thing is there's so many things outside of sports too, like Stranger Things cards, are really cool now. I showed the Star Wars card. Game of Thrones cards are still rocking. So V Friends, there's all these emerging categories that we used to maybe get one release of a year, and now there's all these different releases, and it really feels like there's something for everyone now in the hobby. And if you're frustrated with football and your favorite player getting hurt, like, you have these other properties you could go to, and they're a lot safer with regard to risk of performance on the field and things along those lines. So I think that has been a huge trend this year, and something that I think we'll see more and more of as years go on, is just more collecting options for what you want to collect, and more safety in some of those entertainment and TCG products.
No, yeah, that's also a really good point, because as well as like WWE and AEW.
Yeah.
Wrestling cards like 6 years ago, nobody really cared except, the absolute diehards. But now Topps brought it back, and it is one of the hottest things besides the four major sports. I mean, I couldn't imagine how it's grown this much, especially, I mean, some of these years in 2017, 2018, like the prices were so cheap. You could find so much of it. It's crazy now. You can't even find a blaster of Topps Chrome.
Yeah, well, I think back to my younger days, Brody, and I would go to hobby shops, and my mom would go to the grocery store and leave me in the hobby shop, so it was like my babysitter. But I would see in the '80s all this baseball, and then there'd be a box of football, a box of hockey, and a box of basketball, and no one would buy those. Like who's buying that? But I realized now that the baseball was so mass produced, obviously, and I should have bought Gretzky's rookie year packs, and how stupid was I? But I think there's still opportunities like that with some of these emerging properties. And One Piece is one in particular that if you got in on some of those tournament cards or some of the secret rares, things along those lines early, you're going to do really well. But again, all these other properties too, they've just got a lot of upside, because I don't think there's as many people collecting those as there are baseball, basketball. So I think you have smaller runs and a better opportunity to have something that'll hold value long term.
If only we could go back to the future.
So
yeah, I know.
Clear packs.
One of the things that we see in the vintage world, and that is sort of an analog to what you're talking about, Chris, is that we're seeing a lot of people buying non-sports. The old tobacco cards of Lincoln and Edison and all players like that, and some of the boxing is picked up. So it's really, it's not just baseball or basketball or football anymore, and that's really good. That's really good for the hobby, I think, too, is to people, and it's good. It's also good. I'm a history guy, so a lot of this stuff I see somebody picks up, a Jack Johnson card, and suddenly they read the whole story of Jack Johnson, and it becomes a history lesson. So this little piece of cardboard isn't just a piece of cardboard with a picture on it. It's a gateway to understand more about like American history and the world, basically.
Yeah.
So my notes, I'm down to the last thing, and we're only halfway through, which is good guys. Good guys had good years, and I want to shout out two different good guys that I think had great years in 2025, and I hope that they continue to do well. One is Jeremy Donson of CIA Auctions, and CIA Auctions has had a terrific year this year. And I met Jeremy several times, but got to hang out with him for a while at the Philly show and just sit down and hear about what his concept is for the auction house. And I think it's just he's just a collector's collector doing an auction house, and it really shows in the way that they the rules that they have and the way that they present their cards. So he's one guy that had a great year. The other guy is another auction house guy, is Al from Love of the Game Auctions. Also had a great year this year. He and I had an opportunity to sit down 3 different times on For Collectors and go through his auctions. And just one of those guys who started out as a collector, as a treasure hunter, and now has one of the best auction houses in the entire hobby, and is a personal friend. I've known him for 20 years at this point. And so those two guys had great 2025s, and I just wanted to shout out the good guys having good years. Chris, you got any good guys who had good years that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I know so many. Like everyone seemed to have a good year. It was I'd like to shout out Rob Veras from Burbank Sports Cards. I think the shop he built in Burbank, it was an old Rite Aid. Like whoever thought that there'd be a flippin' trading card shop made out of a Rite Aid, but there it is. And it's beautiful inside and out, and I cannot walk in that shop without spending more than I'd like to tell my wife, and it's a special place. So to see some of the hobby shops leveling up, I think is really, really incredible. RBI Crew 7 opened up a great shop in Missouri. They've always had a shop, but their new location is beautiful. Dave and Adams, if you have not, I went to go to their their shop in downtown New York 2 weeks ago, and of course I'm walking through the streets of it's right by Times Square, so it's like 3 blocks from Times Square. So I'm walking through Times Square, trying to get there, to check it out. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of SantaCon, but it's where like 9 million people dressed as Santa all get together at one time, and everyone's drinking and having a great time. So I'm weaving my way through Santas to go to a hobby shop, and I'm like, this is my life. But that shop is super impressive. So I think one of the cool things that happened this year is hobby shops went from being these places where it's, I've been in hobby shops where it's kind of like a garage sale, right? And then these experiences now have become such premium retail experiences. Mojo Breaks as well. I'm actually wearing their shirt today. In Santa Clara, they're tripling the size of their hobby shop. So they're in the final phase of construction right now. So I've always worked really closely with hobby shop owners. I think I've always wanted to be a hobby shop owner, but it's a scary jump, man. Like it's hard work. You see how much they put into it and how hard it is to get product, and it is a grind. So to see all these shops have success and grow is really cool to see.
Mad City Bruce says, shout out to Hobby Hotline, Junk Wax Hero, and Brody. Stay strong and enjoyed your Christmas countdown. Wonderful. Any shout outs you got in the 2025 hobby? Good guys who had good years, Brody?
Yeah, I think like Chris said, I think everybody had a good year, but I'll mention RBI Crew too. Ryan is an awesome person. He's so fun to talk with. Their new shop, like you said, is awesome. Their booth at the National is amazing every year. Chris Keller from Top Shelf Sports Cards and Top Shelf Breaks. He does so much for the community that he's in, and just an awesome shop, and love hanging out with him. And also too, Tim from Signatures for Soldiers. I mean,
yeah,
if there is a definition of a guy that works his butt off like crazy to do good things, it's Tim for Signatures for Soldiers. If you haven't seen him, make sure you go check him out. He does awesome stuff for the military.
Yeah, we did we did the Hobby Palooza this year, and it was my first year with Hobby Palooza. I mean, I've been on it before in previous years, but as one of the producers of it, and we got to know Tim, and we got to hand him the check for all the money that was raised during Hobby Palooza at the National. And yeah, I can't say like enough great stuff about this guy. And we chatted with him. He was on our finale show. We chatted with him before the show, after the show, just like a guy who, like, he was literally like in tears talking about some of the guys and the money. When we handed him the check at the National, he said, I already know who and where this money is going to. I know which guys need it because he's kept up with what guy is behind in his rent, what guy needs a fix to his vehicle that is set up for his handicap or whatever, something he's got in mind so that he could use that money literally the same day. And so it was just like, it just, good. I'm glad you brought this up, Brody, because this is like good stuff happening to good guys. Like this is like the prime example, because this guy is a good guy all the way down. And to be able to have content with him and contact with him and be able to hand this guy a check and say, listen, like we only did this just, having fun online. You're doing this and making a difference in people's lives. And he talked about how, Signature for Soldiers started out as kind of a small little thing. And the amount of money he's raised is so far beyond any of his expectations that he was able to say, like, he really feels like he's made a difference in people's lives. And he has. And to me, that's exactly what the hobby should be like. It should be people coming together to do something for other people. And if you can do that once in your life or once in a year, then you've done a great thing. And that's turned little pieces of cardboard into magic. And to me, Tim is like the perfect example of that. So thank you, Brody, for bringing that up.
So my wife has a rule: if something comes in this house, a new collectible comes in, something's got to go out. which, I think that's fair. I think, for the sanctity of my marriage, I think that that's a fair thing. But for those of you watching, you may have a similar situation, and sometimes you may feel like, oh my gosh, am I becoming a hoarder if you have too much stuff laying around? There's not a lot of charities in the hobby that you can donate cards or collectibles to. And you can get a really nice tax deduction now that it's end of year on some of those items. But Tim at Sig for Soldiers is a great resource if you're ever looking to lighten the load a little bit and donate some items. I know he loves seeing that. So there's Bertie. Do you know any others out there? There used to be like Cards for Kids and a couple other charities, but I haven't heard of any others lately operating.
Yeah, there's not many else that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, like you said though, Tim's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, those
I,
out there, you know, you got if you're looking to do something good and feel good about yourself, it's and clean up the house a little bit. You can cross a couple things off your list by donating to Tim out there.
Yeah, so my kids were all grown up, and they were all home for Christmas. And my daughter, who's lives in New York, but she has her own place, but she hasn't been home in a while, came into my card room. It's like, really? You have all this stuff? And it was pretty funny because I admit it, I'm a hoarder, and so my wife actually admitted it during the Christmas opening up the presents. She was keeping bags and boxes and stuff, and said, "Yeah, I'm a hoarder." So we both confessed to it this week. But I feel like if you can give a gift out of your extra cards and make it turn into something like that, 100% behind that. So I'm out of stuff. We're 40 minutes in, and I'm out of ideas. So. Good 25 stories.
That's I got a couple other quick ones real quick. Oh, go ahead.
Great 25 story. John Newman, Hobby Hotline, for collectors. We got together at the National, and we talked to John, and this was John and Theo just, got our approval. And then we talked to Mike Moynihan because, Bench Clear Media is where Hobby Hotline had been, and brought it over starting in September. And numbers have been great. Shows have been great. The participation has been terrific. The chat has been amazing. So I feel like John Newman and Hobby Hotline had a great year in 2025. So let me shout out John. Hopefully he's watching.
John is obviously one of the good guys in the hobby for sure. And, it's the online can be such a toxic place, whether it be X or Instagram or Facebook or wherever. There's a few people that are bright lights out there that just make you feel good about the industry we're in, and John is definitely one of those guys.
So Chris, you do have a question from the chat. It's will you be at the Chicago Sports Spectacular in March?
Yep.
Is that in your own capacity or as a PSA?
I'm not sure if I'll be at that one. I haven't been at Chicago Sports Spectacular in a little bit. So, but I'm usually at 2 different events a month. So, my son was asking me 2 weeks ago when I was going to New York. He goes, "Dad, you're gone a lot," and I go, "I know." But I'm going to trading card shows and hobby shops, so it's kind of hard not to go. And he goes, "Yeah, that's a pretty cool gig." So, it's fun when you can do what you love.
Stuke asks plans for 2026. Bro, do you want to take this one? Your plans for 2026?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be doing a lot of the same. Going to be doing the daily rip and all that stuff. Probably uploading more stuff on YouTube is a big goal of mine. And I keep on the lookout too. I mean, I used to do Hobby Life Show. You can see it back there. I think there might be some thoughts on restarting that or something new. So keep an eye on my socials.
My 2026 will include Strongsville again. I already have my hotel reserved in the main hotel. The one has become our frat house. And then National, of course, already have the room. The National rooms were a little more difficult this year than last year. And then I guess, White Plains in January, Philly in March, Philly again in September. A lot of Four Collector stuff to do. Speaking of which, if you we have 65 people in the chat. On Sunday night, tomorrow night at 9:00, I am doing a look back on 2025, just like this, with 4 other YouTube guys. It's going to be Mike Moynihan. It's going to be Orlando, who is in the chat here.
Yeah.
It's going to be Aaron from Value Vintage Cards and Jason from Everyday Cards, and we're going to talk about some of our experiences in 2025 and like with a sort of towards the YouTube part of the hobby, whereas this is more of a sort of hobby-wide kind of thing.
Dan, so what's the deal with
what's the deal
with hotel rooms at the National this year? Why are they more difficult?
So I know people tried to reserve back in like July and August, and we did that last year. We actually reserved in August last year, and they were not taking any reservations. When they opened up reservations for all those hotels right along that block there, all the ones that are within, walking distance, they had to open up through the National. Like you couldn't go directly to the hotel. So when you went through the National, all of the reservations were gone like really quickly. So I'm like a mile off site now next year, which, last year was literally right across the street, which was extremely convenient for an old guy like me. So the 0.1 miles ones are all booked is basically the reality of it. So I mean, we'll continue to hoard, but get better hurting the hoard, getting everything better organized. Yeah, one of the things that I did in 2025, and I know the shout out to Chris Hoge, Chris McGill from one of your friends. Is I put all of my cards into Card Ladder, and it's a lot of cards. Not all my graded cards. I couldn't put any of the ungraded because that's tens of thousands of cards. But put all my graded cards in, and it gave me an idea and a pretty good idea of what I have and what I should probably move. And I think it was one of my better organizational things. So organization wise, yeah.
How long did it take you?
Months.
Yeah.
I put it on my phone.
Yeah.
Pull all the cards down off the display bit by bit by bit, and then I went in all the boxes and managed to get them all in at the same within like I think I got it in August and finished it in November. So months.
Yeah, Card Ladder is an incredible tool.
Yeah, I was pricing a card with like a pop 4 recently with a friend of mine, and I used VCP, and I told him it was a pop 1, and there hadn't been any sales since like 2018. And then I checked Card Ladder, and Card Ladder had a sale from this year and had the right pop count. So I feel like my 1-year subscription to VCP is due pretty soon, and I might not renew it because I don't like when there's data missing in a situation like that. So this is a good question. How did you add them by year? Trust me, it was just like all the Koufax, then all the Spawn, then all the Mize, then all the Mantle. It was just like bit by bit by bit. It wasn't organized by year or player or by sport or anything like that. What question? That's not very hoarder of you, exactly. I didn't know this. Do you guys know anything about this? MLB Network is starting a baseball card show. Chris, do you know anything about this?
No, I hadn't heard about that.
I knew that.
All the network, all the leagues have been doing programming about cards now for the last couple of years, but that's great to see. I know the NHL Network does a Unwrapped segment with Upper Deck. I've seen MLB Network doing a variety of things, but it's great to see an actual show, and I can see it becoming something that's frequent. There's enough content out there. It feels like there's stories every day in this industry.
No,
Brody?
yeah, I agree. They had been doing some episodes. I don't think it was like very consistent, but they had been doing something called Carded, and I watched that a couple times, and it was
Yeah,
pretty good. It was cool, and I think especially when you do these shows that are kind of targeted towards kids, and you get some of the players on there and former players talking about it, I think it could be really popular.
well, I think this is also the year too where we've really seen baseball players take much more interest in collecting cards than ever before, especially with the rookie debut patches autographs. I forget who it was that added their phone number to the back of their rookie debut patch this year, but it goes to show you that, and now people collectors are like, oh well, don't just take $500 for it, work some trade and make a moment, so it's really interesting to see, are you bidding on a player when you're on eBay now? Like, you never know who you're bidding on. And everyone who uses eBay quite a bit, has that story of, oh, I sold this card to so-and-so's dad or so-and-so's mom. I think that's always kind of fun.
Yeah, the guys who collect their own cards, I always love that, because
Yeah,
I can
Carlos.
only imagine, if you're a player. I mean, when I was growing up as a kid and playing in little league and basketball leagues, and I was like, if I had a card, I would be like, it would be like getting a line in baseball, baseball encyclopedia, which isn't really a thing anymore. But anybody who even had one at bat would get their own little thing. Now it's Baseball Reference, but yeah. So I the guys who collect their own cards, I really admire that. Oh boy, don't talk about that. The lockout. I don't think there's going to be a lockout. We'll see. So
I will
we
say,
have.
the one thing I've seen in my career that was earth shattering for manufacturers was is lockouts. It They say that card manufacturers are about as nimble as an oil tanker, that it's hard for them they commit to all these production numbers and have their recipes done and do deals with all these athletes that they can't turn away from if something goes wrong. And literally the interest in collectibles for a sport that is in a lockout, especially now with all the other options that collectors have, we haven't seen something like that. So yeah, I think that if there is a lockout for any sport, they've been talking about WNBA too, which would be awful to see with all the positives that category has seen. It's awful. It will decimate that category for a good 2 years.
Yeah.
But it's also an opportunity to buy cheap too. So I guess you got to kind of figure it out, but it's never fun.
Well, that's the good thing about collecting vintage, is that all the strikes
Yeah,
have already happened.
that's right.
all the stuff has already happened. So yeah, we got about 10 minutes. If anybody in the chat has a question, because the chat's questions have been very good so far. Yeah, Woodhurst vintage, exactly.
One thing, Dan, I'm fired up for is and something for collectors out there to think about is doing some type of sports vacation with your family. We went out to Japan last year to see the Cubs and Dodgers play, which was amazing. And I'm a Padres fan, so this year the Padres are playing the Diamondbacks in Mexico City. So we're talking about going out there, and it's just really cool to see a sport in a different setting or different country. So if you ever have the opportunity, definitely look at maybe taking a sports vacation with your fam.
Hall of Fame is definitely one that I did with my family when my kids were smaller, like going back 13 years, I guess, 2012.
Yeah, I'm going to Cooperstown this year for the first time with my son and his baseball team. Brody, I think you did that, right?
No, because that was the year of COVID, so I didn't get to.
Oh, you missed Cooperstown because of COVID?
Yeah,
Oh, that sucks.
I know.
Stupid COVID.
Yeah.
Well, I would recommend it for a weekend. Maybe not like Hall of Fame induction weekend, which tends to be completely insane. But even like during any weekend in the good weather, that street where the Hall of Fame has all these stores, and just it's a good experience. And it's a pain in the neck to get to, but once you get there, it's pretty much like baseball heaven. Somebody did ask a question back here. How many nationals have you been to? What about Chris? How many nationals have you been to?
I think it's in the 20s, but I'm not sure.
Brody?
I've only missed one, and yeah, it was a medical situation. So yeah.
Brody, how you been?
Been to 8, I think.
Really? Good for
Yeah.
you. I've been to 3.
Well, it's easy
Actually,
when they do it at Chicago so much.
Yeah.
Well, that makes it easy for you. Yeah.
Dan, that's an interesting question. What's the best advice you'd give someone thinking about getting into vintage for the first time?
Ryan is not one of those people needing that advice, because Ryan is, Ryan is one of those guys that knows more about baseball history than maybe anybody I've ever met. He's one of those guys who writes for Saber, and he's got a terrific collection. We hung out quite a bit at Shriners this year. Anyway, best advice: pick a player, learn about him, read about him, and then if you like what you hear and like what you read, then go pick up some of his cards. Only buy the cards that you like. I felt that when I started doing runs, that I was buying cards that I didn't like, so I don't do runs anymore. But I'll collect 5 or 6 cards of each player, and then that will open doors. That will open doors or windows, whatever you want to call it, and you'll learn about different players and learn about their history and who they played with. And I bought this card from the Philly show in September. It's the 1904 Giants, and all Horner photos. And it doesn't have Christy Mathewson in it, but it's got a bunch of really interesting players who aren't Hall of Famers. So I have Luther Taylor and Mike Donlin and Roger Bresnahan and Bill Dolan and all these guys that this card opened up history to me. And I did a whole show about all the different guys in the show and all the different guys on the card. And it's like you can learn just by buying one team card. And so that's kind of my advice. I guess it's long-winded, but the reality is just, let it flow. Learn about players and who you like and take it from there and walk through the doors that are open for you.
I think vintage dealers too, by and far, Dan, wouldn't you agree, are always like very open and welcoming. They're not trying to make a fast buck off people generally.
Not as a complete, not 100%. I gravitate towards the guys that
pretty good. Yeah.
I've been to so many shows in the last 5 years. I've gotten to know on a first name basis the best dealers in the vintage world, and I know which guys to go to. I know which guys to avoid. There are guys to avoid, Chris, honestly. That their prices are way too high, their attitudes suck, and they really aren't in it for like the love of it. And I like the guys who used to be collectors, and then moved from collecting to dealing, but they still have their collections. So like they'll say, well, I upgraded my card, so this is now available. This example of this particular card.
One of the funniest things I asked the dealer this year, I go, so what do you collect? And he goes, everything I can't sell. So it is that different mindset, right? Like I agree. I like the ones that have a passion for it and were collectors themselves prior.
Oh boy. Yeah, Theo was at the Philly show because another good guy who had a good year. Theo is one of the best guys in the hobby, and he invited me in January, actually, almost like just about a year ago. I just got a phone call out of the blue. I'm sitting at my desk, and he is inviting me to join For Collectors, and it's one of the best things that ever happened to me in the hobby, and just has been a phenomenal year. I officially started on February 1st, and it's just been, these getting to know these guys better, hanging out with them at Strongsville and at the National, doing things together, like like the trade nights, the vintage trade night, and of course the Signature for Soldiers that we talked about before, the Hobby Palooza. All those things are great. And Theo got a job in the hobby working for CIA auctions. And when he called me up to tell me about this before it was public, it was like I felt like, it's like when one of your kids graduates from college, it's like one of those things.
Yeah.
You
awesome.
get a friend who who has something great happen for them in the hobby, and then to hang out with him in Philly at the CIA booth, it was one of those things where it was like it was all sort of come to fruition, all sort of all of the good things that he did for other people came back to him this year. And so shout out to my friend Theo, and of course one of the two founders of For Collectors, along with John, who is another great guy. And just good for them. 2025 were good years for them, so that makes me feel good. Absolutely.
Okay.
So just a couple minutes left. I'm sorry, Brody, I just interrupted you. What do you got?
I do have a question for the chat and for you as well. Yesterday on the Daily Rip, we did pull this Ichiro Rip card. I want to know everybody's opinion if I should rip this or if I should keep it. It's tempting, as but every time I've done one of those, it's gone bad. But at the same time, I think if I don't rip it, that'll be the one time there's like a one-of-one Shohei Ohtani autograph worth $10,000, and
what the good news is, Brody? You don't have to. I tell people this. I get asked that question a lot. Should I rip it or not? Just keep it for a little bit. You don't have to make a decision like immediately. So yeah.
My own my selfish advice is to do it here right on the show. So if you pulled something amazing,
there you go.
Well,
but go ahead.
Maybe we'll think about it, and if next time on the show, if I'm gonna rip it, we'll do it live at the end. I
love
of the
it. Love it.
There you go.
Can I share something unique that I found, Dan? So I worked for Upper Deck for 24 years, and I love interesting little items. Like I have this watch they made back in 1990, and just oddball stuff from the early days. I just got this from a former employee, and I was like, what? It is an Upper Deck authenticated Zippo lighter. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, because I worked for the company and they would never in a million years allow me to do in marketing to do lighters. But this was in right at the beginning of Upper Deck Authenticated's launch. And they thought people smoking cigars would, be their clientele. So I love hobby history like that. So that was a great pickup not too long ago.
I think it's cool and it looks fantastic, but I question the wisdom of having fire around.
Fire and trading cards. Yeah, right. It's like, what? So that's what makes it even more unique, I think. So I dig that stuff.
It's like having a sprinkler system in your office around cardboard. Yeah. I do not have a sprinkler system in my office here. So anyway, so that's a deal. Brody, if you are on Hobby Hotline next month, which I hope you are, so you get to do what Chris said, which is to live with it, enjoy the card for a little while, and then if you do decide to rip it, you can do it live on Hobby Hotline. I hope I'm the host, but I probably won't be just by the odds of it. And then we'll get that great content.
Yeah, and if you have if it's awful, then we'll all be there to support you.
There we go.
You have an experienced hobby guy telling you what to do, and I think he's been right on all those points. So, gentlemen, it has been a pleasure. Brody, we never met before, we never spoke before, but I feel like we're fast friends, and I'm thankful for that. If I see you at the National, I will surely shake your hand and reminisce on our end of the year hobby hotline, which I think has been a lot of fun. Chris, this is our second time together, and I'm happy that this one was a little less rocky than the first one.
Yeah.
I had to,
No, great.
I had to talk
Great
directly
being
to
on
the
with
chat.
you, and yeah, had a blast. And random esports number one is right. Time to go watch some football and have a great end of the holiday weekend. That's for sure.
All right, guys, thank you so much for and the chat was great. We got up into the high 60s chat wise, which is always wonderful. Chat was great today. Sorry I didn't get all your comments in, but got plenty of the good ones, and there were real hobby heroes in the chat today. So we're going to take it easy, and we will see you back here in 2026.